Xiaoyan was shocked. One of the three overlords of the Relic continent actually bore the exact same name as the ancient void dragon of the Douqi continent. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Continuing from before, upon hearing Xiaoyan's words, the few young men felt their hearts jolt violently. The fact that he had casually exposed the young girl's divine poison body left them deeply shaken. That constitution had been sealed with multiple layers of secret techniques, yet Xiaoyan had sensed it in a single glance. Seeing that there was no point in hiding it any longer, they exchanged looks before slowly revealing the truth. The girl's name was Ye Rong, the beloved daughter of the sect master of the Yuan sect. Standing quietly beside her was her elder sister, Ye Tianlian, whose gaze never left the fragile figure, as if she feared the world itself might harm her. From the very moment Ye Rong was born, her fate had already been decided. She possessed the divine poison body, a heaven-defying constitution that inspired both awe and terror. The poison power flowing through her veins was so overwhelming that even ordinary Supreme Realm experts dared not approach her carelessly, let alone touch her. A single misstep could mean instant corrosion of spiritual energy and flesh alike. Faced with such a horrifying reality, the sect master had no choice. In order to protect both his daughter and the sect, he personally employed an ancient secret art to seal her constitution. One seal, then another, until 4 powerful seals were layered upon her body. Only then was the terrifying poison force suppressed deep within her. That was why almost no one could detect it. But sealing her power did not seal her guilt. When Ye Rong eventually learned that her own mother had died from the poison aura she unknowingly emitted as a newborn, something inside her shattered. She began to fear herself, fear her breath, her touch, even her existence. Over the years, that fear slowly eroded her spirit, turning her into a timid and withdrawn girl who avoided speaking, avoided contact, avoided life. After listening in silence, Xiaoyan's expression softened slightly. He understood. He had once known someone who bore a similar burden. After a brief pause, he asked quietly, "She has never spoken, not even once." The young men nodded. One of the 4 seals was placed directly on her throat. It suppresses not only the poison from escaping through her voice, but also her ability to speak. Xiaoyan let out a faint chuckle, though there was a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. "In the Douqi plain where I came from, I had a friend who also possessed a rare innate poison body. Unlike sealing it, the method she used to cultivate was far more extreme." His gaze flickered slightly. She consumed poison, constantly, relentlessly, turning toxin into strength. The surrounding youths were stunned. Xiaoyan then stepped forward and gently placed his hand atop Ye Rong's small head. His movements were careful, measured, yet completely unafraid. "If you can truly control this poison power," he said softly yet firmly, "then even Earth's supreme experts would have to fear you." For the first time, a faint tremor passed through Ye Rong's lowered lashes, because in his voice there was no fear, only confidence. After learning that Ye Rong possessed the divine poison body, Xiaoyan felt an inexplicable sense of destiny at play. In the vast Great Thousand World, for him to encounter another bearer of such a rare constitution, it could hardly be called coincidence. As he spoke, he gently placed his palm atop her small head. His touch was calm, steady, and completely free of hesitation, as if the terrifying poison that frightened countless experts meant nothing to him. "If you can truly control this poison power," Xiaoyan said with a faint smile, his voice carrying quiet confidence, "then even Earth Supreme experts would regard you with fear." The surrounding young men felt their hearts stir. Earth Supreme, that was an existence they could only look up to. Yet in Xiaoyan's tone it sounded like a perfectly natural conclusion. "That's right," one of them continued with a grave expression. "After the profound spirit hall learned that Ye Rong possessed a divine poison body, greed took root in their hearts. They crossed hundreds of millions of miles from the profound spirit heaven domain and forcibly broke into our 8 king domains." His fists clenched slightly. The Profound Spirit Hall unified the entire Profound Spirit Heaven domain more than 10 years ago. Their ambitions have only grown since then. Now that they covet Yi Rong, their goal is obvious. They want to use her power as a stepping stone to rise among the great forces of the southern Relic continent. Another youth added in a low voice. If they succeed, they could integrate into the ancient royal court and receive an annual supply of 500,000 drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Ancient royal court. Xiaoyan repeated, brows lifting slightly. Is it that powerful? The numbers alone were staggering. Each year, the ancient royal court distributed 500,000 drops of supreme spiritual liquid to each of the 8 major southern powers of the Relic continent. That meant a total of 4 million drops flowing outward annually. 4 million drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Such wealth was beyond ordinary imagination. Even in the central heaven continent, gathering a fraction of that amount required enormous effort from top-tier factions. For a single force to distribute it so casually year after year, that was not merely strength. That was absolute dominance. Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed slightly. If the ancient royal court could afford such generosity, then its foundation must be unimaginably deep. And any force willing to wage war across domains just for the chance to enter its ranks was clearly prepared to gamble everything. In the central heaven continent, the myriad phenomena. Heavenly Palace, one of the 5 overlords, had exhausted tremendous effort merely to accumulate 10 million drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Even for a peak hegemonic force, such a number required years of preparation, resource mobilization, and countless negotiations. From this alone, Xiaoyan could roughly gauge the scale of the ancient royal court. If it could distribute 4 million drops annually without strain, then its reserves territories, an underlying foundation, must be unfathomable. Compared to it, even the myriad phenomena Heavenly Palace might not necessarily hold the advantage. In fact, it might even be inferior. The ancient royal court is currently one of the 3 overlord forces of the Relic continent, the young man explained solemnly. It is also the most ancient among them. Its authority spans across both the southern and eastern regions of the continent. He paused briefly before continuing, his tone carrying a trace of awe. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was the undisputed strongest force on the entire continent. At its peak, 8 heavenly supremes stood at its helm with dozens of earth supremes supporting them. Its might shook the heavens. It once stood shoulder to shoulder with the Ice God clan, now known as the Ice Spirit clan, the Flame God clan, which later became the Fire Spirit clan, the Thunder God clan, the Wood God clan, and even the present-day Primordial God clan at the far end of the Great Thousand World. Those names were not mere factions. They were ancient lineages whose histories stretched across eras, beings that commanded fear and reverence wherever they went. For the ancient royal court to have once been mentioned in the same breath as them, its former glory must have been dazzling beyond imagination. Xiaoyan's eyes flickered slightly. So, it later declined? He asked. If it were only decline. The young man let out a bitter laugh, the sound tinged with helplessness. He looked directly at Xiaoyan. Since you come from a lower plane, you should know about the extraterritorial evil race, right? At those words, Xiaoyan's expression turned serious, and he slowly nodded. How could he not know? Hundreds of thousands of years ago, in the distant ancient era, the Great Thousand World and countless lower planes had faced a catastrophic invasion from the extraterritorial evil race. That war had been apocalyptic. Civilizations collapsed, continents shattered, and supreme experts fell like rain. When the forces of the extraterritorial evil race descended upon the Relic continent, countless living beings placed their hopes upon the ancient royal court. They believed that this ancient hegemon, armed with heavenly supremes and vast resources, would unite the continent's power and lead the resistance against the invaders. All eyes were turned toward it. All hopes rested upon it. Because if even the ancient royal court could not stand, then what chance did the Relic continent have? Unexpectedly, at the very moment when the continent waited for salvation, The ancient royal court withdrew first. They were the first to pull back their armies, the first to abandon the battlefield, the first to shatter the hopes of an entire continent. That single decision caused the entire continental defense system to collapse overnight. Alliances crumbled, morale disintegrated, the once unified front turned into scattered resistance. In less than 3 months, the Relic continent, once ranked second or third among all continents in strength, was completely overrun and destroyed by the extraterritorial evil race. The speed of its fall was so shocking that even the invaders themselves had not expected it. What should have been a prolonged earth-shaking war ended in catastrophic ruin. After that world-destroying battle, trust in the ancient royal court was broken beyond repair. Many peak experts chose to leave. Of the original 8 heavenly supremes, 3 had already perished during the war against the extraterritorial evil race. Their deaths had severely shaken the foundation of the ancient royal court. But perhaps even more devastating than those losses was the loss of faith. Among the 5 remaining heavenly supremes, 3 ultimately chose to depart as well. They established new factions across the continent, forces whose strength was no weaker than the now declining ancient royal court. And from that fracture in history, one of the present-day 3 overlords was born, the primordial desolation god clan. The air grew heavy after the explanation ended. Xianxia remained silent for a moment, digesting everything he had heard. The rise and fall of an ancient hegemon, the collapse of faith, the birth of new overlords from betrayal and war. Then his curiosity surfaced. Besides the ancient royal court and the primordial desolation, God Clan Xiaoyan asked calmly, "Who is the 3rd overlord of the Relic continent today?" The young men exchanged glances before smiling in unison. "It just so happens," one of them said slowly, "that you have a certain connection with this 3rd overlord." Xiaoyan blinked, genuinely confused. A connection? With me? He had only arrived in the Great Thousand World 2 years ago. During that time, he had been cultivating, exploring, surviving. He had no ancient lineage here, no inherited faction, no hidden identity tied to some supreme power. How could he possibly be connected to one of the continent's 3 greatest overlords? The more he thought about it, the more absurd it sounded. Unless there was something about his origin, something about where he came from, that he had yet to fully understand. The young man spoke slowly, watching Xiaoyan's reaction. The founder, or rather the ancestor of this 3rd overlord, came from a lower plane. Although it may not be the same lower plane as yours, there is still a subtle connection. Xiaoyan fell silent. A connection. If merely originating from a lower plane counted as a connection, then by that logic, wasn't he also connected to these young men simply because they were all male? The reasoning sounded rather forced. Seeing his expression, the young man smiled faintly and continued. This 3rd overlord force was not established by humans. It was founded by the descendants of a powerful divine beast that shattered the restraints of a lower plane 10,000 years ago and ascended into the Great Thousand World. His voice grew more solemn. That divine beast ranks 15th among all divine beasts, and 4th among dragon-type divine beasts. Dragon-type, Xiaoyan murmured unconsciously. The word struck a faint chord in his heart. Yes, the young man nodded. And ever since this force was established, they have been searching for the original plane their ancestor came from. Xiaoyan's gaze shifted slightly. For those who rose from lower planes, one's origin was not a trivial matter. It was not merely about geography or history, it was identity. It was proof of where one began. To know one's origin was no different from knowing one's parents. To spend 10,000 years searching for a lost plane, that could only mean one thing. They deeply wished to confirm whether that homeland still existed, whether their roots had withered, or were still alive somewhere beneath another sky. A faint trace of emotion surfaced in Xiaoyan's eyes. "What race are they?" he finally asked. The young man answered without hesitation. "The ancient Void Dragon clan." For a split second, time seemed to freeze. "What?" Xiaoyan's pupils contracted violently. "Ancient Void Dragon." Those 4 words struck his heart like a thunderclap. Ancient Void Dragon Clan. The name echoed in his mind again and again, because on the Dochi continent, there was also a race that bore that exact same name, and that race was anything but ordinary. How could this name be exactly the same as the one on the Dochi continent? It wasn't just similar. It wasn't a coincidence of sound. It was identical. Moreover, from what the young man had described, the ancient Void Dragon clan of the Relic continent had also originated from a lower plane. That single detail caused countless thoughts to explode within Xiaoyan's mind. A bold, almost unbelievable speculation surfaced. Could it be that the ancient Void Dragon clan here was actually the very same lineage as the one from the Dochi continent? If that were true, then the so-called ancestor who broke through the restraints of a lower plane 10,000 years ago might very well have been a Du Di who shattered the shackles of the Dochi continent and ascended into the great Thousand World. And if one Du Di had succeeded, then what about the others? Xiaoyan's breathing grew faintly heavier. Those who ascended alongside that ancestor, could they have been the numerous Du Di experts who once stood at the absolute peak of the Dochi continent? At that moment, an ancient legend long buried in memory resurfaced in his mind. In the remote ancient era, the Dochi continent had been vast and incomparably prosperous. Countless races coexisted beneath the heavens. Clan after clan possessed Du Di experts as their pillars. It was an era where emperors were not myths but reality. Yet for reasons unknown, those Du Di experts who once reigned supreme across the land suddenly vanished. No corpses, no battlefields, no traces, as if they had evaporated from existence in a single night. From that point onward, Du Di became nothing more than a legend, a symbol of a bygone golden age. The only confirmed Du Di to appear after that era was the Tushi ancient god. And now, in the Great Thousand World, Xiaoyan had learned something even more shocking. The Toshe ancient god had been refined into the clan-guarding flame of the Flame Spirit clan's ancestor, a former Du Di, reduced to a source of power within another supreme race. That revelation had once shaken Xiaoyan deeply, but now, with the appearance of the ancient Void Dragon clan in the Relic continent, all the scattered clues began to form a terrifying possibility. What if those ancient Du Di had not truly disappeared? What if they had broken through the plane's limits and stepped into the Great Thousand World? What if over hundreds of thousands of years they had already established sects, founded clans, and become hidden giants beneath this vast sky? Xiaoyan slowly exhaled. If that was the truth, then the Great Thousand World was not merely a higher realm. It was the continuation of the Dochi continent's unfinished history. And sooner or later, he would meet them, those ancient emperors who once ruled his homeland, not as legends, but as living beings,